Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the Sunday service. This is obviously a continuation of what I was doing yesterday, where I get the chance to mop up all of the comments and questions that I got posed on last week's video that I didn't have a chance to include in yesterday's 30-minute session. So please forgive me if I go into some kind of an uncontrollable coughing fit. I seem to have picked up this cough. Now, if I can hold it off for half an hour, I will do my best. But it seems pretty relentless, but we'll see how we go. Chris, we'll start with you. You asked me a question a couple of weeks back, and I've finally got an answer. My question is, if you had to remake a horror movie to entice viewers of today, which one would you like to see done? This is either a great film or one where the premise was good, but the execution failed. My thoughts on remakes, especially horror movies, well, any movie really, as you know, is that if they use the excuse usually that they want to introduce it to a new audience, and I've said this before quite a few times. My thoughts on that is if you really intend in introducing this movie to a new audience, just show them the original, because there's nothing wrong with it. Remakes hardly ever live up to the original. Case in point being The Fog, which I think I mentioned last week, John Carpenter's The Fog, which they remade, I believe it was about 2005, and it was bloody atrocious. It was really bad. And I know I probably would say that because I loved the original from 1980, but it really was a bad movie. But if I had to pick one, and I had to think long and hard about this one, because most of the movies that I thought about have already been remade or rebooted. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I thought of 4 or 5 and thought, hang on a minute, no, they've already done those. The only one I can think of, or could think of, and it suddenly popped into my head because I saw it on Prime and I thought, yeah, maybe. A movie called Dead of Night from, I believe, 1945. Now, it was made, it's obviously a British film, black and white movie, and it was, as far as I know, one of the first portmanteau movies, which, for those of you that don't know, is a movie that contains 4 or 5 separate stories, one after another, a bit like a compendium. Amicus made lots of them in the 60s and 70s, and they were all absolutely brilliant, all of them. But I think Dead of Night was the original, the first one, as far as I know. And there was a story in that about a ventriloquist dummy, which, if you've not seen it, I'm not going to wreck it for you. It's a cracking movie. I know it's an old one, 1945. It's like 80 years old, 60 years old, 70 years old, or whatever. But believe me, it is well watchable and as creepy as hell. So if they had to remake a movie, I would probably say go for that one, even though I would be bound to say, the original is much better, but I would be very curious to see what they do with a movie like that. I think another was a ghost story about the ghost of a child. There was another one about a dead golfer. Another one about premonitions. It was a really solid movie, and I would be very interested to see what they did with it. And maybe now, with Amicus movies making a comeback, maybe they'd be the ones to take something like that on. But yeah, my answer to that one, Chris, would be Dead of Night. Now, you've posed a couple more questions, I think, over the last few weeks, and I haven't forgotten about them. I've just got to come up with some answers, so leave them with me. But that's that one. Loving the Hughes Horathon, by the way. You're picking some cracking titles. Serpent and the Rainbow. Yeah, I mean, the only scene that put me off that one was the chair and the nail. You know what I'm talking about if you've seen it. The controversy surrounding that was rife when the film was first released, but it was a good enough movie. Wes Craven, you can't really go wrong with Wes Craven, but it's certainly not his best. I did get very excited when I realised you were going to be talking about Wolfen, a movie starring Albert Finney from 1981. I loved this movie. I remember going to see it at Burton Odeon when it first came out. It's based on a novel by Whitley Strieber. Now, Whitley Strieber, for those of you that don't know, is an author of horror novels. He wrote the book The Hunger, which was turned into a movie starring David Bowie. He also wrote a non-fiction book called Communion about his personal experiences with alien abduction and basically alien visitations, which was fascinating. It was turned into a movie, I think in the early 90s or late 80s, called Communion, starred Christopher Walken, who played him. Absolutely brilliant. I haven't seen it for many years, but I do remember being really creeped out about it. A lot of it was set in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, sort of a holiday home. It was just really, really well done. So, yeah, I heard you were going to be talking about Wolfen, and I got really excited. I don't think it's talked about enough. That's my copy. Got this a few weeks ago from HMV. I can't remember what the second was because it's two for 25, and there's no way I would not have taken advantage of that offer. But that's my copy of it, and it's still in the cellophane, so I do need to get it watched. But it's a cracking movie. It doesn't get talked about enough. I think it, like you said, it seems to get lost in between movies, sort of from 1981, werewolf movies, American Werewolf in London, The Howling. I think A Company of Wolves came out a couple of years after that. There was another wolf movie. Oh, it was Wolfen. Here we go. But yeah, whenever you mention werewolf movies, the first one everybody comes up with, and quite rightly so, is An American Werewolf in London, which is an absolute stone cold classic. I get that. The Howling. I loved The Howling. I thought it was absolutely superb. Scary as hell. And Wolfen, as you say, not so much a horror film as a cop thriller. You're quite right with that. But I don't think Wolfen gets it tends to get hidden behind the others and not get talked about a lot, and I think that's a real shame because it's a cracking movie. Albert Finney is superb in this. I believe Gregory Hines is in this one as well. So yeah, I listened to watched your review video. Really enjoyed it, mate. What else have I got here? Can't wait to hear your thoughts on Dead and Buried. By the way, I saw this first at Burton Odeon, thought it was horrible. I rented it on VHS on the old Thorny MI. You remember them, Jace? Thorny MI tapes. It then disappeared for a while because it got mixed up in this whole video nasty thing, when a lot of fairly mainstream movies got caught up in the crossfire with that one. But Dead and Buried is a really good movie. I haven't seen it for quite a while, and it is yet another one that I need to catch up with. But I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts of it. I even remember the name of the village that it was set. Was it Potter's Bluff? A little coastal town. It was shot, I believe, in very soft focus, if I remember right, giving it a sort of a dreamlike look to it. But I thought it was really good, and I would definitely be up for watching it again. I haven't seen it for years, but definitely looking forward to hearing what you think of that one. You mentioned The Burning. I think that was the first one that you did. Jason, you were saying saw that about 30 years ago and not seen it since. Put it in the planner because it was on Legend the other week. Wonder if it was cut. Didn't realise that. I've also put the original Evil Dead in the planner too, as that was on the BBC. Evil Dead on the BBC, really? I must have noticed that and not thought anything of it, but thinking of it now, I mean, again, the controversy that surrounded that, it was on the video nasty list for ages, so the last place I expect to see a movie like Evil Dead is on BBC One, or Two for that matter. So, yeah, I'd be very curious to see whether they screen that one uncut. What else have we got here? And this week on the BBC is The Exorcist. I did see that on there. And again, my first thought was, are they going to show it uncut? The crucifix scene. How on earth could they show that? Well, let's see. I'm not going to watch it on the BBC, obviously, because I've got it on Blu-ray, and I will be investing at some point in the 50th anniversary 4K box set, which includes a copy of Mark Kermode's book, his sort of assessment of The Exorcist. It's his favourite movie of all time. I've been meaning to get that book for ages, but checked it up on Amazon, and it's going for stupid prices on its own, 50, £60. So for 70 quid, for saying you get art cards, the book, all sorts of bits and pieces in there, several cuts of the movie, I think I'm just going to go for that at some point rather than paying 50 or 60 quid just for the book on its own. You put, I'm all for giving things a second or even a third chance. I think you'll enjoy The Burning, Chris. You did enjoy it, I think. Also, another one that is the same thing, released around the same time, or the same year, is Just Before Dawn. That was shown on the BBC in the early 90s, and it's never been on any TV channel since. Jace, it's streaming on Prime. I saw it last night and stuck it on my watch list. I'm sure it's the same one from 1981, about a group of teenagers that go to some cabin in the woods. It's a very early cabin in the woods type thing. But you have a look on Prime. I'm fairly sure that it's showing on that. Let's see. The Beast Within. You were talking about a movie called The Beast Within. This is another one that I remember from the early days of VHS. The big black Warner boxes, I think, was one of those. You put it's another one of those movies I watched when I was about 11 or 12, and maybe shouldn't have. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I remember it being quite violent. I can't remember if I enjoyed this or not. My uncle loved his horror at the time. He must have liked werewolf movies, as there was this one, American Werewolf in London, that one again, Werewolf of Washington, and Company of Wolves. Oh, and The Uncanny, which was about cats. Oh God, you forgot The Howling, Jace. Werewolf of Washington. I seem to remember this being a really cheap. I'm not sure, it wasn't a video nasty, but it was a really cheap effort. But it's one that I wouldn't mind taking a look at now, mainly because you brought it up again, and I've completely forgotten about it. But again, American Werewolf in London, you can't do werewolf movies without that film. Even though my all-time favourite is the original Lon Chaney Universal monster movie, The Wolfman, from 1941, I think it was. I love that movie. But for the transformation scene, obviously American Werewolf in London beats them all hands down. Right, you also put a post on about head cleaners, VHS head cleaners. I remember them well, very, very well. Did these clean the heads, or did we just believe they did? Did you ever put a film on after cleaning the heads and say, that's better, I can tell the difference? I sure bloody didn't. I can't remember. I did used to have 2 or 3 of them, and I did use them. And I think you kind of convince yourself in your head that it does look better, but whether it did or not is anybody's guess. Gareth, you said you still use them today, but you've got quite an extensive VHS collection, which I love those posts you put on, by the way. I love those. Guy said, I managed to get my missus to clean my head the other day. That's an image I wanted, Guy. Thanks for that. There's always one in there. Now then, oh, by the way, loved your Straw Dogs review, Jace. I was really impressed with that, actually. You put, just watched this movie for only about the 3rd time. I've always said that our film taste changes as we get older. I first saw this in the late 90s or maybe early 2000s when it was finally released to buy on DVD after being banned. I bought it at full price because I wanted to see what the fuss was about. And that's the main reason I first watched it. I can't remember where I first saw it. I believe it was a Guild Home Video big box rental, which was when I first saw it. I do remember being very impressed with it. I also remember thinking I can see why they've had trouble with this one, which still holds today, I think. And you put, on my first viewing I wasn't impressed, but I kept the DVD because it had been banned. That would have been on the video collection, I'm sure I remember that one. I watched it again a few years later and it was a bit better. Tonight, for the first time in about 15 years, I watched again. This was the best I've seen it. Same film, yeah, but I appreciated it more for how old the film is. 1971 this was released, and it must have bloody shocked a few moviegoers. I absolutely loved it, and it won't be 15 years before I watch it again, I can assure you. Yeah, I mean, it was... that movie, I watched a documentary on the BBFC not too long back, and they were basically saying that the movie was seriously pushing buttons in 1971. And it was really, really problematic back then, but it was passed apparently with minimal cuts. Um, and I believe it was also said that the author of the original novel upon which the film is based, disassociated himself from it completely because there was literally too much mayhem going on. So even the original author of the book upon it was based didn't want anything to do with it. So, but to me, it was one of Sam Peckinpah's, one of the highlights of his career. One of his I do want to watch is The Wild Bunch, which was probably 2 years earlier than Straw Dogs, and also possibly The Getaway starring Steve McQueen would be one to take a look at. I've heard that his best movie is The Ballad of Cable Hogue, but it's a very, very different affair from Straw Dogs and The Wild Bunch, that's for sure. I did enjoy Convoy. That was a good Peckinpah movie, brilliant film. But Straw Dogs, I just love the controversy surrounding it, and it still rages today. There are still people who will not watch it, thanks to the central scene, which caused all the problems. But yeah, I really enjoyed that review, Jason. It's good to hear that somebody of a younger generation appreciates movies like that, because a lot of people would watch it and think, oh, that's old and that's crap. So, but yeah, I did enjoy that. I love the, what was it? Please rewind and be kind. Head swap. Me in a video holding up a sign. Rewind your videotapes. That was a good one, like that. Steve Mack. Loved your Videodrome Criterion review, by the way. I was really disappointed at the end when I found out it was only available in the US. That's probably one that I would want to watch again. I saw it many years ago, really, really enjoyed it. So that's a very good possibility that if it does get released in the UK, I will be taking that one in. I've not seen many of his Cronenberg's later movies, including, I think you mentioned Crimes of the Future, Crash, quite a few others. I've not seen many after The Fly. That kind of traumatised me for a while, that did. It was nasty, the arm break scene. I'll never ever forget that scene, the arm wrestling. God almighty, what a horrible, horrible piece of film. But I do need to catch up with some of his later movies. But as everybody pretty much knows, I'm not the biggest fan of body horror. It just makes me cringe, which I guess is what it's designed to do. Definitely looking forward to hearing your review on Todd Browning's Freaks. It's a movie I've always meant to take a look at. I believe there are two others in that set, and I think this is a UK release, because I've seen it on Amazon. So I'll be very, very interested to hear your thoughts on that one. That's another movie that was outlawed way back in we're talking 30s, I think, with this one, aren't we? 1930s, very, very early movie. Controversial as hell at the time, still controversial now. But yeah, definitely want to hear what you think of that one. And I forgot to get that Star Wars despecialized box set from upstairs. I was going to show it off to Guy. We were talking about the despecialized editions last week. So yeah, I'll hunt that out, Guy. I'll keep a note of it on here, and I'll show you what that looks like next week. Let's see, Dave Oliver. Been enjoying your videos, mate. Saw X review. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much decided yesterday that I'm probably not going to be watching the Saw franchise. I don't think, from what you said, Saw 1, 2, yes, possibly I'd just about make it through the first two. What you mentioned about Saw 3, the needle pit, I think was one, was it Pins and Needles pit, and the rack, I wouldn't get past it. And like I said yesterday, I can't see the point in getting into a franchise of which there are 10 now, possibly going to be 11 if Saw X does well, if I can't get past the first three, because I've not watched any more of your reviews because I can't see the point if I'm not going to watch them. But I gather they get gradually worse. Even though Spiral, I don't think anybody was overly impressed with Spiral. But I did enjoy the reviews, mate. It definitely gave me... it made the decision for me. Let's put it that way. And as for Saw X, I wouldn't get past the eye vacuum, and I certainly wouldn't get past the girl having to smash her ankles and her wrists to get out of a trap. Not a hope in hell would I get past that. So I really enjoyed your Exorcist Believer review, by the way, and I'm so pleased that you enjoyed it. I have heard so much bile and poison spat at this movie over the last week. Kermo being one. I was really disappointed. He hated it. He absolutely loathed it. And I think it's split at the moment. It's like 70-30 in favour of the people, the naysayers. My thoughts on it, and I've not seen it, I don't think it's going to be that bad. I'm going to watch this and I'm going to come away from it pretty much the way you did, thinking, have I just watched the same film that everybody's being so nasty about? I mean, the critics are being so spiteful about it. It can't be that bad, and you cemented that this week with your review. So I'm definitely going to watch it. I may even invest in the 4K when it comes out, because I don't think I'm going to think it's anywhere near as bad. If anything, they had the option of making it what I would class as way too graphic, in which case I probably wouldn't have watched it. But I'm certainly going to take a look at it. But I'm just really pleased that you got something out of it. I was afraid, especially when I saw the expression on your face at the beginning of the video. I thought, oh, for fuck's sake, he's not going to like this. So I'm really pleased that you did enjoy it, mate. Well, you gave it a 3.5 out of 5, which is a good score. It's a very good score. As for David Gordon Green, he's rapidly becoming, what have I called him on here? The reinventor of the modern horror legacy movies. He seems to be taking hold of movies that that nobody in their right mind would probably touch with a barge pole. He did the Halloween movies, which I know you had your reservations about. I wasn't overly keen, but I would probably watch them again. So I'm very curious to see what he does with future Exorcist movies, and of course which one he's going to take hold of next. Nightmare on Elm Street, maybe. That's the thought. But yeah, enjoyed your videos, mate. Keep them coming. Really enjoying those. Right, a question for you guys. This is based on Callie and Guy's Hun You Geek. Oh, Christ, I can't even say it. Hun You Geek is Showing podcast, which was inspired by a question that I asked. So I'm going to nick it back off you, and I'm going to say to you lot. Are there any movies that you wish you'd seen on the big screen that you were too young to watch, or that you just missed? Name me 3 and message them over, and I'll be talking about them. I'll give you my 3, hopefully on the next video, because I need time to think about that one. But that's the question for this week. What movies do you regret not seeing on the big screen? So that's that one. Have I got time to do movie myths? Maybe. I'll do one. Urban myths to do with movies. I'll start with this one because this one really made me smile. Potato asteroids in The Empire Strikes Back. These are all things that are supposedly true, but nobody really knows whether they're true or not. For many years, there was a rumour floating around the galaxy that some asteroids featured in Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back were actually potatoes. Guy, you'll love this. This one sounds bizarre, but it is in fact true. During the making of The Empire Strikes Back, the designers of the Millennium Falcon made a stellar observation. As it turns out, the structure of an asteroid really does resemble a potato. So rather than waste time constructing a plethora of asteroids, they used potatoes for the asteroids that were far in the background. They're so far away an unassuming viewer wouldn't even notice. Didn't see that one coming, did you? Because I didn't. So yeah, a lot of the asteroids in The Empire Strikes Back were actually potatoes. You live and learn. Every day's a school day. I'll do another of those next week. I've got one here about the Wizard of Oz, but I'll come on to that next week. Just a quick word about a series that we watched basically over the last week, and polished off the last episode last night. Wilderness is streaming on Prime. Stars Jenna Coleman. Um, a very brief synopsis. A young British couple move to New York, happily married, until one day she discovers a text on his phone, an explicit text from a woman that she doesn't know. Um, and I don't want to tell you any more because there are so many twists and turns in this. It is a marvellous series. It's had us hooked for the last 6 nights, and the last episode for me did not disappoint. And you try and get in the theme tune out of your head after you've heard it for 6 times. Oh God, it's one of those tunes that I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, and I really ain't. I didn't even realise it was her. But somebody at work said, "Yeah, it's Taylor Swift." So, look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Oh, it's yeah, good. Right. I'll run through a quick couple of bits of news. Oh my God, Sony have authorised a remake, get this, of Total Recall. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't this remade in 2012 or thereabouts? And I think the original is from the 90s, isn't it? So I'd have thought 2012 was way too early for a remake of that one, but apparently they want another one. And I don't know why. Why on earth would you want to remake something that's already been remade? And we come back to this reboot thing again. There was nothing wrong with the original. The original was absolutely brilliant. The Schwarzenegger, superb. How many times can you remake the same movie and expect it to come out differently? But we'll see how we go with that one. Mark, quick one for you. You were asking about Some Otherhood. You said it was out soon. It's actually out on October the 13th, and I believe it's getting a theatrical release before anything else. Let's see, what else have I got here? On the buses, the movies are being released on Blu-ray. Now, this was reported by the magazine Film Stories. The 1970s was rife with sitcom to film adaptations, from the controversial Love Thy Neighbour to Man About the House and Rising Damp. While On the Buses may be viewed these days as a show very much of its time, it certainly was, there's no denying that it was extremely popular. The first film was second only at the British box office to Diamonds Are Forever in 1971. That's a hell of a claim to fame, beating a Bond movie at the box office. Now they're all being released on Blu-ray, courtesy of Australian distribution company Viavision. So you're going to get HD remasters of all the films along with a ton of special features. My question is this going to get a UK release with it being an Australian distribution company? Jason Kerr, you can probably answer this for him. I presume you're familiar with, what is it, Viavision? What do you think? Do you think we're going to get a UK release? Because I would love to grab hold of these in Blu-ray. Absolutely, I would. Okay. I was going to do a rant about Amazon delivery drivers, but I don't think I'm... You know what, I could just carry on, couldn't I? Okay, we'll come back to that in a minute. There was a post. Rob Zombie is confirmed to be filming the very first standalone horror film within the Star Wars universe, but not part of the normal canon. It will have characters we've seen from Legends and canon alike. The script has been awaiting the end of the Writers Guild strike to be officiated, and filming is set to begin as soon as the cast can be put together. Let's see. Guy said, I'll watch this. There's been horror elements used in the books several times, so for me this will work. Plus, we all know Mr. Zombie knows a thing or two about directing a horror film. This has legs. I didn't realise that. I mean, I've not read any of the Star Wars books, so that is all completely new to me. So yeah, we'll see how we go with that one. But let's see. I'm going to have to take a break on this now because it's coming up to 30 minutes. I don't think it'll go on much longer, but I've got another 10 minutes with to sort of get through. So I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Back in a sec. And we're back. Right, I've only got a couple more bits to mention. I might as well clear all these notes off actually and start afresh next week. That one I mentioned when I was talking about movie myths. There was another one that I've got on here about the Wizard of Oz. A Munchkin actor committed suicide in The Wizard of Oz. Um, this dark myth surrounding one of America's most beloved films has been around for decades. The legend states that one of the Munchkin actors hung himself on camera during the production, and you can see his body in the background of the Tin Woodsman sequence. Thankfully, this rumour isn't true. If you look closely, you can see an abstract figure in the distance, but it's not a Munchkin. Rather, the production crew borrowed a variety of birds from the Los Angeles Zoo to make ours appear more exotic. The hanging Munchkin in question is some sort of bird, most likely a crane. So that one wasn't true. I heard this one about 2 years ago, and I believe it's the basis of one of the episodes of Cursed Films, which is on Shudder. And I remember watching it and thinking, I think I've got that copy. It was only shown, or you could only see it on certain copies, certain VHS copies of the movie. It had been taken out of every sort of subsequent release, but it turns out it wasn't true anyway. So that's a nasty one. I'll come up with more of those because I love reading stuff like that. Let's see, what have I got here? That was a brilliant poster, by the way, Jace. Henry Cavill as Bond in License Renewed, directed by Christopher Nolan. It sounds like a dream, doesn't it? I would definitely be up for that, and I've always said this, Henry Cavill would be absolutely perfect. I'm not overly familiar with any of the other actors that are in the running, apart from Tom Hardy, who I think would be amazing. So between those two, yeah, either one would do a cracking job, and with Christopher Nolan directing, well, look what he did with the Batman franchise. I mean, it would be absolutely amazing, but hardly likely, but we'll see how we go with that one. Amazon delivery drivers. Okay, the story goes like this. I ordered a Blu-ray last week. There's not a week goes by I don't order something, usually. I got a notification it was out for delivery on Wednesday, as you do. I stayed up until 8 o'clock and nothing had turned up, and I thought they're going to put it off till tomorrow. Went to bed, went to sleep, checked on Amazon the following morning, your parcel has been delivered. They even enclosed a photograph of a house that wasn't mine, and it was on an outside wall which leads onto the street. So I thought, basically, there was no way to my mind it was going to be there by the time I actually discovered which house it was that they'd left it in front of. I mean, Amazon delivery drivers, what kind of a fairy dairy land do they live in that they think it's perfectly okay to leave a parcel on an outside wall in the rain at 9 o'clock at night and not expect somebody to walk by and think, oh, I'll have that. Obviously. So I sent them not so much an email. I think you get a choice on the order saying, were you happy with the delivery? And I hit no, not great, and just put that it had not been, that I'd not received it. Now, I've not had anything from Amazon since, which is a bit disappointing. I got in the car to come to work, and I just happened to glance to my right as I drove past a house 2 doors down, and there was this parcel on the wall, and I thought, how fucking unbelievable is that that is still there. Obviously the cardboard packaging was sodden, soaking wet. Inside, luckily, the DVD survived because it would, Blu-ray survived because it was wrapped in cellophane, with it being brand new. And I thought, that is absolutely amazing. I've still heard nothing from Amazon to basically say, we'll send you another one out. So they obviously don't give a shit. But it just amazes me. I've actually got a wooden postbox outside the house. And I do need to go onto Amazon and update my delivery instructions to actually tell them that. I get it that they're on schedules, they have to deliver so many an hour, and these targets that they have to reach are pretty unrealistic. So I get that they're in a rush, and I get that they probably wouldn't have known that I have a shared entry, no euphemism. I have a shared entry with next door. You have to come through a wooden door, and then obviously you've got the entry, and outside my house is a wooden post box where everybody puts their parcels. I guess they wouldn't know that, but to drop it at a different address on an outside wall in the rain, Amazon, that's not good. That really isn't good. But that's my rant for this week, is Amazon delivery drivers. Um, as I say, I get that they've got to reach targets and this, that, and the other, but that's no excuse for that. That was crap. I was not impressed with that. So, right, that's pretty much all of the stuff that's on here. Shows I grew up with. If I've already done this one, please forgive me. If you're around in the 70s, you will know the Double Deckers. Just a brilliant kids series about a group of kids that basically hung around in a junkyard, and they had an old London double-decker bus as their home base. The whole yard is equipped with gadgets, all sorts of stuff. A good mix of kids. Peter Firth started life in this one. It was just brilliant. You couldn't have gone through the early 70s without having seen at least one episode of the Double Deckers. And I've got a funny feeling I've done this one before. I meant to bring a second one down just in case, but if I have done it before, I do apologise. So that's that one. Now, what have I bought this week? I'll start with this one, seeing as this was the offender from earlier on. Once Upon a Time in the West. Somebody mentioned this at work in connection with the fact that I said I've not seen the Dollars trilogy, the Clint Eastwood Dollars trilogy. And they said, have you seen Once Upon a Time in the West, which is another one of the same ilk? And I said, no. Saw this on Amazon for $6.99. Thought, I'll have that. You know, I'll have that dropped on a wall outside in the rain. That'd be really good. So, yeah, looking forward to having a look at that. Henry Fonda, Claudia Cardinale, Jason Robards, and Charles Bronson. 2 3/4 hours. That's a long one. And it got me thinking. Chris, I may half-inch your Western thread because I suddenly realised there are so many Westerns that I've not seen. As you saw, I got that John Wayne box set a couple of weeks ago, which I've yet to get into. But I suddenly realised there are so many Clint Eastwood movies that he did that were Westerns and brilliant. That's my spaghetti Western box set. That is A Fistful of Dollars for a few dollars more, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which has got the best movie score ever. I love the theme tune to that. Absolutely love the theme to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So that's one that I do need to get into. I've watched for A Fistful of Dollars a couple of times, but never got more than half an hour into it before something happened where I had to turn it off for one reason or another, and I can't remember why. But I do need to watch those. And also, I think you reviewed these, Chris. There are 3 in this one: Pale Rider, The Outlaw Josie Wales, and Unforgiven. It's unforgivable that I've not seen Unforgiven because it won Oscars and everybody's on about it. Says it's absolutely amazing. It's the peak of Eastwood's career, but I've never seen it. So yeah, I will be starting some kind of a Western thread. And I'll tell you what else is coming back. Bin It or Keep It. I had a look this morning to try and find 3, and I'm struggling to find 3 at a time that I want to get rid of. So I think I'm going to start doing Bin It or Keep It again from next week, hopefully, where I'll just talk about one movie that I've watched and probably, would not watch again, and that will be winging its way to the charity shop. So Bin It or Keep It is coming back next week. Also had the latest issue of Total Film, which has got, I believe, an amazing interview with Ridley Scott about his latest movie, Napoleon, which I'm looking forward to taking a look at. And also SFX magazine, the legendary horror issue, which, let's see, we've got articles on Stranger Things, Fear the Walking Dead, The Munsters Today, oh god, The Boogeyman, Chucky, Five Nights at Freddy's, Pet Sematary, Bloodline, and all sorts of other things, and obviously The Exorcist Believer, which is pictured on the front there. So, right, that is it for this week. Hope you've enjoyed being with me. I'll be back again at the same time next week. Keep the comments and stuff rolling in, because it really is you guys that keep me going with this. If it hadn't have been for your comments and the stuff that you've put on, I'd have barely made half an hour. So your contribution is so important to this. So I really do appreciate anything that you want to say. Right, I will let it go at that. Have a brilliant week, folks, and I will be back again at the same time next week with a Saturday review, and hopefully, if I've got enough to work with, also a Sunday service as well. Take care, have a brilliant week, and I'll talk to you all again next weekend. Take care. Ta-ra.